And my name is Chris Daner. I'm with the KSU Information Security Office. We have with us for this session Dr. Herb Mattord, who completed 26 years of IT industry experience before joining the KSU faculty in 2012. Oh, I'm sorry, 2002, excuse me. He was the manager of corporate information technology security at Georgia Pacific Corporation, where he acquired much of his practical knowledge of information security. He is currently on the faculty at Kennesaw State University with the rank of associate professor, where he teaches undergraduate courses in information security and graduate courses in information systems. He served as the director of the KSU Center for Information Security Education. He is the co-author of several books published by Course Technology and an active researcher in information security management topics. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm KSU welcome to Dr. Herb Mattord.
Thank you, everybody. Audio's okay, I guess. Can you hear in the back? You good? Okay. I like the fact the first row is empty. If I start throwing things or, you know. So anyway, this is a little talk I put together to talk about, explore what's happening in cybersecurity workforce development. That's a thing here at Kennesaw now. We've created the Institute for Cybersecurity Workforce Development, which is a vehicle, an organization on campus that allows us to pull resources and tech curriculum, faculty participation from all over the campus and deliver it into a unified, consistent, and coherent set of classes that students can take. So we're working on some ideas there, which I'll get to in the end, at the end of the talk. So it is a global problem. The cyber threat is real, it is growing, it's intensifying, and this is a cute little diagram. I'm showing you an animated GIF that has nothing to do with that except to show that it's a global problem. This is a follow the sun diagram of a botnet with its traffic caused by usage from its ICMP traffic. So it was the Karna botnet was the source data that this came from. So anyway, we know right now for a fact that the cybersecurity workforce problem is real, it's present, and it's growing. And by problem, we're talking about the fact that there's a demand for more workers that are trained in the discipline than we have students that are graduating to fill the jobs and existing employees to do the work. So what that means is a few factoids we can take away. There's about 200-something thousand open positions that they've identified in the country that are open right now. They're anticipating 1.5 million unfilled jobs in the next 7 years, 6 years, something like that. That's a lot of positions that we're going to have to backfill with graduates and retrained people and students that come out of high school with an interest in going directly into work. So I'm working with a group of other faculty that are appointed by the Association from Computing Machinery, the IEEE, and the AIS, that's the Association of Information Systems, where we're trying to get our arms around what a curriculum looks like for cybersecurity. Now, we're working from other work that's already been done from organizations like NIST and other federal agencies that have put together what's called the NICE framework. And those are focused mostly on jobs and skills necessary for the federal workforce. And so what we're trying to do with the ACM, IEEE, AIS task force curriculum model is to come out with guidance for faculty at universities and colleges around the world. It's an international effort on what exactly comprises the skill set that one would expect for a student that's graduating with a preparation to work in the realm of cybersecurity. At the moment, that perhaps is a little bit of a hard thing to pin down. I'm going to have to actually pull up the definition here, if I can get to it. Why won't it let me see it? Here we go. Whoops, wrong way. Okay. What exactly is cybersecurity? So it is, this is a canon now, so I have to read it properly. Computing-based discipline involving technology, people, information, and processes to enable assured operations. It involves the creation, operation, analysis, and testing of secure computer systems, It is an interdisciplinary course of study, including aspects of law, policy, human factors, ethics, and risk management in the context of adversaries. So it only took the committee 6 months to negotiate that wording, to get it nailed down precisely. Doesn't sound like much, but that much agreement from that diverse a group was actually hard to arrange. So what do these bullets, these slide factoids have to say to us? 1.5 million more professionals are needed than we have. That's the shortfall. That's the size of the shortfall. The biggest skill gap in current graduates, look at what's number one with 72%, the ability to understand the business. That bullet tells us that right now, today, if you graduate with a degree that you think is cybersecurity related, that 72% of the employers that hire think that you were prepared improperly in that you do not have enough ability to understand the business, right? That could be a problem for some, okay? Notice that there's a lot of technical skills that are on the list, but at the same time, enterprises are looking for people that can do non-technical work. Look at these, things like auditing, right? Systems administration is a technical thing. Auditing is more of a business and management thing, okay? Hardest skills to fill right now, architecture, and these specialty skills, including things like network attached storage, legal compliance, computer forensics. It goes all over the place. Every skill you can imagine is part of the mix, and we're trying to get our arms around exactly what it means. So we'll get to some pay and compensation numbers in a minute. So what is the cybersecurity threat landscape like today? And has it changed over the years? Are we preparing students today to meet the threats that will exist 3-4 years from now when they're ready to go to work? Or 2 years, or in some cases, next year for some of you, right? So what does it mean? Well, back then, we had maybe a little bit of e-commerce. You know, that's a little shopping cart. And now we have lots of e-commerce. We had a little bit of financial services on the internet. And now we have a lot of financial services on the internet. So back then, you could go to 1 or 2 places, literally 1 or 2 places, and buy things back in the 90s. And now almost every enterprise that sells anything almost always sells it on the internet as well. Every bank and brokerage house, every financial service that you can need is now available on the internet. Everything in the business that used to be housed in our data center in a nice, tight, closed room is now an ERP system that's scaled across the globe with probably poorly secured links between the nodes. So what's happened here is we've seen an increase in the attack surface that's available for the adversaries to come after us and get our stuff. And so today's cybersecurity entry-level worker must be prepared to work in an environment that's vastly different in terms of the threat landscape than what was there as little as 5 years ago. So, have the adversaries changed? I borrowed this slide from David Rowan at SunTrust. It's the watering hole is the name of it. It's a Remington Western painting, and you get the idea that they're here guarding the water hole from the adversary, looking up over the edge. And the adversary had a certain set of capabilities. The asset had some values that we wanted to keep for ourselves, and we were defending our asset from the adversary. The problem is today is that the adversaries are evolving, they're changing, and they're different from 1 week to the next, from 1 year to the next. So when I started out teaching at Kennesaw State in 2002, one of the last major incidents I worked at Georgia Pacific before I left was Code Red and NIMDA, right? And we had poison box, web defacements were one of the things we worried about. Today, an organization is probably not too worried about website defacements as a category of assaults or attacks against them. They're more worried about longer-term, higher-value targets. So organized crime, and if you try to Google an image for organized crime, you'd be surprised what you get. By the way, most of my presentation today was prepared on a dare from Stephen Gay, who told me he'd seen a presentation where somebody had no words on the slides. So I have as few words as I can get away with. And pretty much every slide, I took the topic I wanted to cover, I put it into Google, clicked image, and the first image that popped up is what I picked. Okay? So when I picked script kiddie, this is what I got. When I clicked on organized crime, cybercrime, this is what I got. And when I clicked on information warfare, this is what I got. So the adversaries that we are preparing for have evolved from Fluffy Bunny. Who knows what Fluffy Bunny was? Dr. Whitman knows. Anybody else besides Dr. Whitman? The Fluffy Bunny? Their biggest coup in my mind was when they went out to SANS and they put the SANS webpage, they downloaded it, they inserted with Photoshop a picture of a pink rabbit, a fluffy bunny, and they reposted it onto their homepage. And added an overlay text that says, would you trust your security training to a company that can't secure their own webpage? Right? That was Fluffy Bunny. So might have been amusing. I don't know, it might even cost them some brand or market share, but it wasn't really that serious of an assault compared to what we might face once we get penetrated and lose all of our customer data, or we have personally identifiable information that makes us subject to breach notification requirements, or worse, we lose financial data, or even more importantly and more severe, we lose critical information that's closely held, trade secret information. That's very hard to suffer through when you have that kind of a breach and loss. So as we go about anticipating our future adversaries, because that's something we have to visualize when we think about how we're going to prepare students, we've evolved from thinking about the script kiddies, not that the vulnerabilities left for script kiddies to exploit are unimportant. We must close those down, fix the systems with vulnerabilities. And not that we're worried about, not stopped worrying about organized crime attacks, but we have other things to worry about, like perhaps positioning our organization to weather the blowback from information warfare. When a nation state goes after another nation state on the internet, what are the side effects going to be? Are there going to be collateral damages in cyberspace? And are we prepared to deal with those consequences? Even bigger than all of those threat adversaries combined, those threat agents, the insider threat remains. Some estimates put insider threat as up to 80% of the risk profile for most organizations. What's an insider threat? Well, it exists when we have employees that work for us that have to be given privileges to do their jobs, that take those privileges and use them against our interests. Either they steal information and exfiltrate it for sale, or they're disgruntled and do sabotage type attacks. But the bottom line is we have to be somewhat susceptible, I guess, to the insider because they need the privileges and accesses to do the work. At the same time, we have to build in those interior controls that keep the loss from any single insider to a minimum and have good business practices that keep insiders from being able to cause as much damage. So, who are the real adversaries? And what adversaries are we most concerned with, and which threats from those adversaries can we manage the risk from most effectively? Most of us that have had a class in security already know that we can't bring the risk from cyber losses to zero. That's not a possible thing that we can accomplish. You can't have a zero risk environment. Oh, maybe you could. You turn off the computer, unplug it from the network, and never use it again. Your risk will get close to zero, but it won't be zero even then. But that's not practical. That also violates the concept that we work from, that confidentiality and integrity, while worthy goals, have to be balanced against that availability argument, that concept of using information technology to add value or make money or improve profitability. So the demands for business functions continue to grow. When the internet first started, we had lots of security controls in place that revolved around physical security. When my data center was a room full of computers and I had a lock on the door and could control who came in and who came out with information, I could have a much tighter security profile around that data center. But the data center didn't last, and we moved to another kind of architecture, not the data center, but the distributed network. And so we had desktop computers with local area networking capabilities that were hooked to servers, and those servers were interconnected to the internet in such a way that we might have assets scattered around different networks, and the networks would be connected together to become internetworks, and our operations could be scattered like the wind across the organization. Another set of problems, another way to control it emerged, and we all got pretty good at doing that. And then, of course, the cloud comes along and turns everything upside down again. And so we have new technologies that are brought in to solve business problems that cause security problems in their wake. Any curriculum that we propose has to be able to address the weaknesses that are in the cloud architectures, the way attackers and adversaries will use those weaknesses, and how we can, as owners of the system, operators of the system, custodians of the system, defend them against attack. Okay, so the threat landscape is evolving, and it's a moving target. As much as it's exciting, and last night we had a talk at the ISA speaker series from Mike Rothman at Securiosis, and he came in and gave us a great talk about the cutting edge, maybe bleeding edge security threats emerging from cloud deployments. That's exciting stuff. But you know what? There's a lot of companies amongst those thousands that Phil was talking about that are still using both distributed networking computing in their business, and they're also still, some of them, using servers in server farms. They also exist. They also still have security threats. They also still have to be secured. So it's not enough for us to focus on these emerging threats coming from evolving adversaries. We must also be worried about all of the different aspects that we're concerned with from the legacy systems that are out there. I understand, I do teach a course in the history of computing and security, so every once in a while, about once a year, I'll go out and do a little research and refreshing on it. Last year, a milestone event happened. The last working commercial telegraph was turned off in 2015. So, watch an old Western, like, Shane or one of those, and the guy goes to the train station and hands the telegraph operator the slip, and they get down there and they fire up the chemical battery and hook the key to it and start sending messages over the wire. Yeah, they had one of those working in India until 2015, right? And you could go to the village, hand them the slip of paper with the money, and they would tap out the message in Morse code, right? That was until last year. They just shut it down. The legacy, the tail of old technologies remains out there, and they remain out there for a long time, and they might always be a security risk for the companies that rely on them. I imagine there's somebody out there somewhere still using punched cards for data processing. I don't know a specific example, but I do know they still manufacture punched cards for sale. Right? So, where's the workforce going? We've got a complex environment to deal with. We've got new adversaries, emerging and changing adversaries. We've got new threats, emerging and changing threats. We have new environments we have to work in, evolving, changing. Some would say improving. Others would say becoming unnecessarily more complex. But everybody has their opinion. The world is a big place, and there's lots and lots of IT in it. There was a time when first world countries had kind of a monopoly on IT being deployed, but that's not as true as it once was either. Second world economies, developing economies have a lot of IT, and lots of developing countries, the so-called third world countries, also rely on IT. Surprisingly, one of the side effects is because of cellular telephony, these countries that you normally wouldn't think are susceptible to cyber attack, in fact are, because if their cellular phone network were to be taken down, they wouldn't have any phones at all, because they've come to rely on cellular telephone rollouts to get telecom to their population. So that's an interesting consideration. If you're going right to the newest technology, you don't have backup stages in the earlier versions of technology either. So the cybersecurity workforce at the international level continues to have demands placed on it. The number I like to kick around the most is 1.5 million unfillable positions by 2022. So in 2022, if these projections come true, I believe, according to the ISC Squared Global Workforce Study, we will have, and their number is for 2019, there will be 6 million people working in cybersecurity, and we'll need 7.5 million people to do the work. So there'll be 1.5 million jobs unfilled. Where are those workers going to come from? Maybe some of you, I hope, maybe lots more like you are going to be encouraged to come fill those demands that are being placed on the workforce. As we stand here, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there's 209,000 cybersecurity jobs posted and unfilled. Right? That's their number. I didn't make it up. It's actually come right out of their study. And that's from that's a 2015 number, so it's the end of 2015. That was the count. Cisco says that there's going to be 1 million cybersecurity openings. That's interesting. And demand is expected to continue to rise. So we have numbers. How about in America? What do we have going on here? Well, I mentioned that number from the BLS. They are predicting growth in cybersecurity openings of 36.5%. 36.5%. So that means that for every person that's working now, for every 2 people working now, there's going to be another one each year for the next 7 years they're projecting. Okay, that's a lot of growth. We need people. We don't just need bodies, we need trained, skilled bodies that can go out into the workforce and deliver capabilities to employers that meet the employer's needs. That's the problem to solve. So how do we solve that? Well, one of the ways we do that as a culture is by adding extra draw, extra pull to the field. And one of the ways that pull happens is through salaries. And what we're seeing, and this is good old basic econ, you all have taken that course, I hope, right? As the demand goes down or the supply goes up, things happen, right? What happens to price? So as the demand goes down or the supply as the demand goes up or supply goes down, the price is going to go which direction? So Stephen, how much more would you expect to pay for a cybersecurity professional next year than you pay this year? That's a rhetorical question. I know you work for the state. There's very few inputs to that algebra. But in general, a CISO in a free market setting would be expected to pay more next year when there's fewer people available for more jobs, right? What's the purpose of that from economics? What's the economic reasoning why the salary goes up in those situations? Greater demand, less supply. And its purpose is to encourage the market to deliver more of what's scarce, right? And the way we encourage those to enter the marketplace with scarce, is by offering bigger rewards. And often it may be at the expense of jobs where the opposite is true. There might be sectors of the economy where there are too many workers trained in a field and too few jobs in the demand side. And what happens to those salaries? Or what should happen in a rational economy? The salary should go down, right? Because there's less demand, there's more supply. So while this algebra of economics works in cybersecurity's favor in this situation. We have to be prepared for the same thing that happened in the information technology arena in the late 80s, in the early 80s and mid 80s, when salaries went way, way up, people came to the marketplace, and employers were found with lack of quality in their candidates. So we have the same concerns going in here. We might be drawing unqualified people into the marketplace. The good news for IT people is that the annual salary for a cybersecurity worker, right, of all experience levels for cybersecurity analyst job titles is $90,120 per year. So that's an average across all skill level, all experience levels for the job title cybersecurity analyst. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of money, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, we'll talk about starting salaries in a minute. Some anecdotes I've been given, these are all word of mouth and not provable, is that a typical graduate BBA ISA right now will walk across the stage and into a job 50s, maybe 60s. The best will get 70s. That's with little or no experience. Okay? More experience means higher starting salaries. So if you have some work history in the field and then get a degree, it goes up as well. There's also a chance that people that are working in the IT industry in related areas to security can cross over into the security side. They did a study recently at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and found that the average crossover worker from an IT job, say a system administrator or a network administrator, who moved over to a security role, got a 9% rise in their salary, which was roughly, according to the BLS, $6,500 a year change in their salary by moving over to the security disciplines away from the systems management and network management disciplines. So that's encouraging, right? So what's happening in Georgia? This is a diagram that kind of shows us some information in a sort of a grab bag fashion. Up here, this is a list of the top hiring companies that posted jobs in 2015 in Georgia, actually in North Georgia, in the metro Atlanta marketplace. So we would kind of expect a lot of these, that we kind of know these companies, right? But there's some on there that don't jump immediately to mind. You don't recognize them, but they're part of the ecosystem, okay? But you would see some expected names, SunTrust and Cox, Global Payments Incorporated, right? Dell, that's where SecureWorks hires under. IBM should be on there somewhere, I'm sure. Fishnet's there. You get the idea. Fiserv is a payments company. As the previous speaker spoke, as Phil mentioned, payments industry is big in Atlanta, and that requires some security employment. And so that's why we tend to be such a draw. So what makes cybersecurity such a hot spot for the Atlanta marketplace? Why is Atlanta all about cybersecurity? By most accounts I've been given, Atlanta is number 3 in the United States. Number 1 is Washington, D.C., for obvious reasons. Number 2 is New York City, for also obvious reasons, perhaps. And then third is Atlanta, which may be not as obvious a set of reasons, but we can ask some questions. As Phil mentioned, we have more corporate headquarters from large organizations than most cities in the United States. He said we're what, number 3 or 4, something like that, in Global 2000 headquarters. We also have a pretty good educational infrastructure for security. Georgia Tech's been doing this for a long time. Kennesaw State's been doing it for nearly as long. Dr. Whitman and I have been teaching security here since 2000, earlier than that, I think. So we've been at it a while. But that's not enough to account for the fact that people come here looking for security jobs and find them. So part of it is that there's an expectation that there's good security work here, so that draws people to move here. And sure enough, when there's talent, companies will come here looking for that talent. So it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling cycle, an angel's cycle, angel's rise, if you will, where people are drawn to the marketplace because it exists, and companies come because the marketplace is here, and so more employees find out about it and attend and come and look for jobs, which brings more companies to advertise those jobs, and it goes up and up and up. And that's kind of how it gets started. But to keep it going, then, those of us that are involved in the workforce development parts of it have to keep ourselves focused on what's important and what role we can play in developing the ecosystem of cyber workforce employees. I did this chart as a part of a project I'm working on. This looks at every degree awarded in the state of Georgia, degree and certificate awarded in the state of Georgia in the last 5 years for CIP code 11.1003, which is cybersecurity. So the short answer is Georgia produced 396 students in 5 years, 396 in 5 years. That's all certificate programs, bachelor's degrees, and graduate degrees in the state are on this chart. It's broken down by year up here. And then we have undergraduate certificates. At KSU, we produced 21 in 5 years. Undergraduate degrees, we produced 182 in 5 years. Graduate certificates, we produced 7 in 5 years. Graduate degrees, none. That's not our specialty. We did 210 students getting a degree or a certificate in security in 5 years. By the way, that represents 53% of the state's production in total, right? That's kind of a good number. I'm proud of that number. My colleagues here that helped do that, we're proud of that number as a group because it means we've worked hard to develop a quality program that produces graduates. The interesting number here was in the news recently. 46 happened to be quoted in a newspaper article that Georgia produced 46 bachelor's degrees in security 1 year. And where did they all come from? Kennesaw State. So, 396. The other programs that are producing CIP codes in that area are listed here. You can look at those if you want to. I'm not going to go over them. So, where did the current crop of security workers come from? Where did they come from? Well, lots of them come from IT. So IT workers translating into security. In fact, myself at Georgia Pacific, I left there as a cybersecurity worker. I went there as an IT worker. And along the way, I was recruited into the security discipline. It happens a lot. Phil's advice to people looking to start a career is to get any job in IT and then mine it for security potential is a valid way to approach this because it happens a lot. When companies do go outside to hire, they used to have to go to either the military or the law enforcement communities, depending on the specialty they were looking for. Now, there's this little thing called convergence that goes on that muddies the water to some degree because we have the convergence of physical security and cybersecurity in some organizations. And sometimes organizations, then when they do their reporting out, they report things in a combined way. So the law enforcement and military hiring was probably part of that as well. But we're seeing a change. Things are changing in the industry. There's no longer enough IT people to spare. They have their own shortage going on, by the way. There's no longer enough of them to spare. There's no longer a surplus of military people to bring in at entry level. Even if they have the right skills, there's not enough of them. And so companies are beginning to look for a rational way to increase workforce through hiring at the entry level. Now, another number that Phil threw out that I share is that 84% of companies expect their entry-level hires to have a bachelor's degree. And they also want you to have a certain set of skills that make you useful and productive for what you're being hired to do. So that tells us that a lot of companies are beginning to hire entry-level security workers with a bachelor's degree as their primary credential. And so what we hope to do is to develop curriculum and programs of study that students can come and earn a bachelor's degree, which is required by most companies, and get a skill set in cybersecurity that they can use to get that entry-level job. then, as Phil pointed out, in 3 years, you can be pulling down 6 digits on your paycheck too. Right? It happens. So, this is the Kennesaw graduating class from, let's see, I think this was 2014 in the fall. Anybody on there? Can you recognize anybody? Maybe not. Yeah. Well, that's Professor Green. That's Professor Zafar. I'm trying to remember some names here. I'm not real good at names, unfortunately. Anyway, that was our graduating class a couple years ago. We're every commencement, we roll some out. They go out there and they get work, right? That's what it's all about. That's what it's for, okay? So one of the things that we encourage every student at Kennesaw State to do is to get some experiential education, to gain some experience and credit at the same time. And how do we do that? Of course, co-ops and internships. So that's a recommended path. As often as possible, you should do the internships and or co-ops if they can be arranged, so that you come out graduating with not only a degree, but some practical experience. You can then take that to the marketplace and put yourself in a position with a company that values that combination. So what's coming? What's happening in the future? Well, not quite sure exactly what's going to happen, but we can make some predictions, if you will. National efforts like NICE, the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, the ACM Task Force for Curriculum that I'm on, we're trying to get more institutions of higher education to take the preparation of the next generation of cybersecurity workers seriously and to develop programs of study that can take those students that they have coming to them and produce graduates with the right skill set to meet the need. It's often not as easy as it sounds. In fact, at the same time we're trying to do this, there is a shortage of faculty that are qualified to do such instruction. Because if you're going to have a terminal degree in security, there's very few programs offering that. They're hard to get in and they're hard to complete. So it's an ongoing issue that we have to deal with. It's one thing to want to teach cybersecurity to college students. It's another thing to have the facilities, the faculty, and the program capacity to deliver that program of study. So it's complicated. So at KSU, we have a vision, if you will. We want to be the place where cybersecurity education happens in this region. So we're certified. We have the NSA, DHS. I got to read it. I can't remember how to say it. Dr. Whitman can rattle this off just left, right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. It's hard to say, right? Anyway, we're one of those, okay? It wasn't easy to be one of those, although there's quite a few now where there were fewer before. It is a lot of work to document the fact you're delivering quality programs of study, and not only that, through the effort of our professional staff at KSU, we have to show we can actually do security and not just teach security. So we have to document our capacity to be secure, to teach security, to have a curriculum that matches what they're expecting. And then we can put these logos up on our web page and advertise that our programs of study are in fact able to prove that we have innovative curriculum, to prove that we can do applied research in security, which we do. We can prove that we have industry partnerships with local organizations, businesses, and agencies. We can prove that we have the ability to help in the transfer of information technology, information and cybersecurity technology to the local community of business. We can do all those things. That's what this says, that we've proven since 2004 that we can do that. And we were the second school in Georgia to have the designation. We were the first school in Georgia to have the cyber defense education level. That's what I read in a newspaper article. I'm sure the reporter got it right. Yeah. So, as we're executing towards our vision of what the future could look like, what happens next? Where are we going, right? What are we doing? So we have our designation. Now we have our institute. Right now we have programs of study as follows. Our best offering, I think, because I teach in it, is our Bachelor's of Business Administration and Information Security and Assurance, the BBA-ISA. It's a business degree first, cybersecurity related degree second. It produces a graduate with a specified skill set and an aptitude and an attitude about security. We also have an undergraduate certificate that students can pick up if they're not interested in a degree. In the Coles College, we also have a graduate certificate, a business security certificate, if you will. And we then also, goodness, there's so many. We also have a graduate certificate in IT security. I'm less familiar with that one because it's at the College of Computing and Software Engineering, but they offer that certificate at the graduate level in conjunction with their MS in IT. And they also have a track that's associated with their Bachelor of Science in IT. So it's a sequence of courses on a BS IT degree. So we're teaching security in a number of places. We also have classes in the Criminal Justice Department in high-tech crimes and high-tech law enforcement. So those are related fields, if you will. So we're already teaching security in a number of different places. We're currently teaching business-focused management layer security with a technical capability. So we think that the next logical step would be to offer a more complete security degree that's also more technically focused. And so in the coming terms, we hope to be able to offer students a Bachelor of Science in Cybersecurity. So it's kind of a combination of an IT-focused approach with a security focus that gives you a broad security instruction and a more technical capability than we currently offer in the BBA degree. So that degree is currently in development. We hope to have it announced in the next few months, and it would be a cross-campus or interdisciplinary initiative where we have faculty from 3 colleges, multiple departments, teaching courses in security and IT-related topics to students. The more interesting part, maybe not to this audience of students, but to others who might listen to this, is that this degree is going to be what's called an E-major. An E-major is an initiative from the State Board of Regents to offer a completely online degree across the state to any student that would like to take it using online course delivery capabilities. So if you're a student in the room, it's not likely you're going to sign up for an E-major, but you might know somebody who might be interested in an opportunity to earn a degree without having to travel to campus. So we're not quite sure what's actually going to happen next. I'm no doubt that the news next week or the week after will have a giant breach announcement of some kind, the next big corporation to be hacked, the next government agency to lose their records, the next embarrassing trove of personal information, whether it's for a dating service or emails. But something will happen because cybersecurity is going to be in the news. We're pretty sure that there's going to be the next big thing. We're not sure if or when these nation-state players are going to get rowdy and go after something, someone, somebody, or some other country, and we would experience what that would be like. Those of you that have studied it or have read about it might know that that's happened a couple of times where nation-states have started flexing their cyber warfare muscles out there. Don't know what that's going to mean for those of us that are just casual internet users, but it might be an interesting thing to watch happen. No matter what happens, though, whichever news announcement sneaks up on us and slaps us upside the head, we know that we have to keep producing students with degrees that can do the work to secure the infrastructure. That means cybersecurity workers. That means a cybersecurity workforce has to be developed, it has to be maintained, and we have to make sure that they're prepared the proper ways with the right skills. Okay. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have. Yes?
You said that the cybersecurity program is going to change. Will that affect current students?
No.
Okay.
I say that pretty glibly. It might affect some students in some programs. First, we can't really tell you what's in it because it's not approved. So it's kind of in development. When it's announced, each student will have to say, is this for me or not for me? The challenge we've faced with the BBA ISA, if you're one of those, is that to take a BBA ISA, you have to be admitted to Coles. To be admitted to Coles, you have to make a huge investment in your sophomore year to business. You take 7 business courses, and you have to do well in them. Then you can move into security, right? Well, if you've made the investment in 5 of those courses, you're not going to be changing direction anytime soon, right? So the idea is that the BBA ISA students that are far down the track, this is probably not going to be a departure for them. There might be other majors on campus, perhaps a student that's studying in IT or criminal justice or another degree that might look at this degree and say, hey, wait, I don't have to take 7 classes in business as a sophomore to take this degree. Wow, now I'm interested. But, oh wait, I have to take it online. They may not be interested anymore. So the number of students that actually change from an existing committed program of study on campus today to this might not be a great number. I'm sure there'll be some. What this is intended to do, though, is to reach out and identify, connect with, and draw students from other related programs that may not have access. So believe it or not, I spent 20 minutes on the phone this morning, young man. He's about to graduate from a technical college in South Georgia with an associate's degree in information technology. And he wants to get a bachelor's degree because he's heard these statistics that we've been quoting, saying, I've got to have a bachelor's degree to have a real career. Where can I get a bachelor's degree that A, is in cybersecurity, B, leverages my preparation in an associate's degree to the maximum degree possible, and C, I don't have to move away from home while I'm doing it because he's got a job right now and a life. So that's the kind of student that we're trying to identify to move and target this degree to. We aren't hoping at all that the current BBA ISA students redirect to this degree because it's a different audience, it's a different purpose, it's a different direction, and we serve a different constituency with the graduates. Because the employers that we have relationships with now that want to hire the BBA ISA graduates, they like them a lot just the way they are, thank you, and they want more of them. So we don't see the BBA ISA going away. We do see it maybe changing over time to become even more focused on critical management issues and maybe a touch less technical, but not much. Because if you don't have that technical grounding, you're really not as useful as you would be with it. Anybody else? Yes?
Do you have any internships you personally recommend?
Do I have a what?
Like internships that you personally recommend?
The internship I recommend is the one that you can get hired into, right? And so my opinion on that is that you identify all that you have even a vague interest in, you apply to it, you interview for it, and you take the one that meets your needs the closest, okay? Go in every direction all at once. That's my advice. Don't target one company. I've got to work for X, because your hopes might be dashed. What you need to do is take the approach of, I need an internship. Okay, here's 10 of them. Okay, I can apply for 8 of them. I can get interviewed on 3 of them. I'll get one. That's my advice. The company's not important. The work history is what you're after. Yes?
The cybersecurity degree, right? Is this going to be purely online or is
Yes.
any opportunity for
No. Okay, I'll give you 2 answers. Officially, it is a completely online degree. It's an E-major. Having said that, every course in the degree is offered from a current course that's taught either on campus or online through KSU. Every single course comes from either the IT department in CCSE or the ISA group in the Coles College or the CRJU department in Health and Humanities and Social Sciences, okay? If a student were to take all those courses in their home departments, they would be transfer substitutionable, is that a word? They could be substituted for the degree requirements in the cyber degree. Okay, did I answer it obtusely enough for you? Yeah, okay. So officially, no, it's a completely online degree. But it's also a completely KSU degree, which means that if you have the credits that can substitute, you can assemble what you need to earn the degree. Yes?
Sorry, you talked about getting a bachelor's degree, but your pie chart showed that it was a 34% hold master's degrees and then about 4% hold PhDs. What kind of trajectory up to that PhD level would be wise for students if they want to make like not only a professional but also academic career?
Right.
in information security?
So an academic career in any discipline requires a PhD if you want to work at the university level. Having said that, there is a lot of education that goes on from people who instruct as master's level holders, right? I recommend, my personal advice is you get a bachelor's degree, get some work experience, and then pick a master's that you like and earn it while you are living. And then, God forbid you want to teach, then you could think about a PhD. But that's a decision you're going to have to make after careful consideration of your personal life experience and your objectives in life.
But are there any advanced degree programs specific to information security that seem to be, quite commonly accepted or sought after?
Well, the industry is, is still in that stage where if you have something that's related, it's good enough. To tell you the truth, the Georgia Tech Masters of Science in Information Security, it's in a league of its own, but that's if you want to go to work in the Beltway or up in New York. A lot of those people that get that degree move on to great and wonderful things. However, it's very competitive, right? There's probably 1,200 applicants a year for 30 or 40 slots. So it's hard to get accepted to that program. There's the certificate program here at the Marietta campus in IT. It's related to security. It has security courses. It carries a designation as being security related. That's an option. We have aspirations at some point way in the future, maybe a general purpose cybersecurity related master's degree here, but that's hard to engineer. You have to demonstrate a requirement and a need for it. And so far, the need that we see, the need that we feel like we can make a case for is at the bachelor's level. Other questions? We have time, so don't feel like you can't ask them. Okay, I believe we're done.